Good evening, and that's a little bit hard for me to say. It is 5:30 on November 24th, 2014. We're having a special hearing with the board. We're at Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street Northeast, and we'll begin the meeting, as we were just discussing before the camera came on, with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, all right, I would like to call a special public hearing to order. This is a public hearing to consider solid waste collection rate changes. And before I start, just a couple comments. We changed our normal time on purpose, hoping to allow people, if they're interested, to be able to attend. We've done this in the past in terms of going to communities if it's appropriate. And this particular subject, some 4 years ago, caused a lot of dismay. People didn't know that there was a rate increase going on, but it was also, and perhaps some of the others will talk about it, it was a lot more than just a rate increase. There was a whole new recycling program that was implemented out in the country. Cans, containers were brought out to the roads and the system modernized. So it was a huge change. And I honestly believe whoever else was involved didn't do a good job of letting the public know. I don't think this issue this evening is so controversial, but we'll see. But we just wanted to let you know that this wasn't an accidental time, and we try our best to garner comments from the public and make sure that we're not surprising anyone. Does that cover it somewhat, or have anything? All right, with that, we'll start. And how this will go, we'll first have a county officers describe the request, and then people from the industry will give an opportunity, and then we'll come back to our county people for final comments, and we'll make a decision on where we go with it. So, Bickford, go ahead. Next Wednesday will be a decision on it, most likely. So, Jeff, if you'd go ahead and explain what's before us this evening.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, the Environmental Services Division Manager with Marion County Public Works. As you know, Marion County franchises our garbage and recycling collection services outside of the city limits of each of the county's 20 incorporated cities. Per Marion County Code, the board sets the maximum rates that can be charged by our franchise haulers at a public hearing, which is why we're here today. Each year, the haulers perform a cost of service analysis for us in Salem and their other jurisdictions that they operate within, which looks at all of their costs and revenues within that franchise area. And this is typically presented to staff in August to September of each year, as it was this year. The general goal is for the haulers to be realizing an approximate rate of return of about 10% prior to taxes. Based on this year's cost of service analysis, the haulers have determined that there is a need to make adjustments in the collection rates for urban and rural customers in order to reach that target rate of return that I just mentioned. Staff has reviewed the submitted cost of service analysis for completeness and accuracy and concurs that the rates would need to be adjusted to get to that targeted rate of return. What the haulers are proposing is a approximate 9.2% increase for roll cart service within the urban growth boundary area. That's outside of city limits, but in the urban growth boundary. So that would be the roll carts type service that the gray roll carts for your garbage and recyclables and yard debris. There is no requested increase for roll cart service outside of the urban growth boundary. So in the rural areas, there is no request for any rate adjustments. Additionally, there is a request for a drop box service, and what a drop box is, are there large roll-off boxes that are basically 10 cubic yards and higher typically, and they're normally used by businesses or during construction or special projects that you might have when you're going to have a large amount of debris, and then you need a larger level of service. So there's a proposal for in the urban growth boundary that Dropbox rates would increase overall by 7.7% in the urban growth boundary, and outside that area in the rural and sparse areas of the county, that would be they're requesting a 10.4% overall rate increase. I'm going to let Todd Irvine and Estelle Hartland. Todd is the manager, the general manager of the Mid-Valley Garbage and Recycling Association, and Estelle is the president, I believe, of Harlan Business Consultants. Go a little over in more detail what their rate request is. Any question before they come up? Any other questions?
Well, I was just trying to, and maybe someone can answer, the basic charge, most important, would be the 32 or 35 gallon roll cart charge, and it was always trying to be consistent with Salem. I'm sorry I didn't look this up beforehand, but maybe somebody can tell me how they compare. It looks like Salem, feels like Salem, but it's not Salem, so they should still at least be pretty close, and I'd just like to hear that.
They are pretty close. They're not exact. They used to be, as you mentioned, they used to be the same. We used to hold them the same, but over the years, as we've started, they've continued to be a little bit more thorough in their cost of service analysis. The numbers just aren't exactly the same. Their costs and the revenues in those areas are a little bit different, but they're fairly similar. And just to give a feel for what this means, and you mentioned a 35-gallon roll cart service. Currently, in the urban growth boundary, that service would cost $20.95 per month. The proposal with the adjustment would raise that to $22.90 per month for an increase of $1.95 per month.
That didn't sound quite right. What's the new rate, Jeff?
It'd be, let me go to here. It would be $22.90 from $20.95.
All right.
So it's an increase of $1.95 a month for that particular level of service.
Okay, thank you. If you'd come up and introduce yourself, your name and address, please, and then go ahead and tell us what you'd like to.
Thank you, Chair Brentano and Commissioners. I'm Estelle Harlan, Solid Waste Management Consultant for Mid-Valley Garbage and Recycling Association. My address is 1952 Northeast Spindrift Court, Lincoln City, Oregon. And to answer your question, Commissioner Brentano, in your packet there is a rate comparison summary. And so the new rate in Salem is $22.25.
Okay.
It's just slightly different now. It's not exactly the same. That's the rate for starting January 1, actually. It was just approved last week. So for the hearing record, I want to begin this testimony with a little bit of information about the process that your franchisees have been through, what we've engaged in to bring this to this point tonight. So each franchisee turns in a detailed actual financial accounting of their operations and their the financial part of their operations to me each year as their solid waste management consultant. That what they turned in for this year was actual 2013. And I reviewed that as their consultant, and I analyzed it for reasonableness and accuracy of revenue, tons, truck hours, and other relevant areas of operation. Then that reviewed data was turned over to the association's CPA, Dan Porth, who is here tonight, and he reviewed each company's COSA spreadsheets, and that COSA is cost of service analysis. We refer to it as a COSA. He tested the integrity of all formulas, and then he combined the separate spreadsheets into a single composite that allowed a county-wide view of the franchisee's profitability. The composite data for actual 2013 and pro forma 2014 and 2015 was then submitted to the county for review and analysis. Based on our separate analysis and the county's analysis, the revenue need was determined as described to you by Jeff Bickford for the reasonable operating margins in Marion Urban and Marion Rural. And as Jeff told you, this is a margin that is before taxes. We believe that the process has great integrity and that we would ask then that the franchisees be granted the rate adjustment as stated in the staff report and as described in the rate schedule that is in your packet. Factors in support of the rate adjustment include the county code, which says it in the Solid Waste Management Code section 6.3 sub N, it lists reasonable rate of return and operating margin as a criterion to be considered when adjusting rates. And this would bring us to an overall margin of approximately 10% before taxes that is commensurate with the targeted industry average in Oregon. And it does comply with the reasonableness test. Your packet also includes a comparative rate summary that lists monthly residential rates for solid waste management service, and the solid waste management service includes garbage, recycling, and mixed organics. And that is what is collected by CART in the residential. And the summary indicates that if the proposed CART rate increase in Marion Urban were approved, the new rates would remain reasonable when compared to other jurisdictions. And it's important when looking at other jurisdictions to know what they offer. Most jurisdictions do not offer the collection of mixed organics. Of the jurisdictions listed, only Salem, Marion County, Kaiser, and Corvallis do offer the mixed organics. So you're way ahead of most other jurisdictions in what your franchisees are offering. As Jeff said, there's no increase requested for commercial containers, and the increase for drop box would be in urban and rural. And your packet does include a comparative rate summary that shows that those drop box rates, haul rates, would also remain very reasonable. In addition, we believe that there's a reasonableness test in that the last general rate increase was 2011. That was based on data, pro forma data of 2010 and actual data of 2009. And before that, it had been 5 years before we had asked for a general rate increase. As Commissioner Brentano mentioned, there was a program adjustment in 2012 for mixed recycling in rural, sparse, and commercial, but there was no general rate increase. And so we have been very efficient and very frugal, and also we've really tried to be very accurate in our data that we've turned in to you and the requests that we are making. We have followed the county's required format for collecting and submitting COSA data to the county, and that has been tested and analyzed for reasonableness, and therefore we would request that the proposed rates, as stated in the rate schedule, be approved and that the increase be effective January 1, 2015.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions of Estill? All right, thank you.
And I'm here for any questions.
Oh,
All right.
Kevin, go ahead,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that Marion County has the mixed organics in the rural area or just in the urban area?
In the urban.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
I should have turned that on after I did that. So I missed the Salem rate that you said at the outset.
22, 25.
25, right. Okay, so I looked it up on my phone while you were talking just to make sure. And that's quite a bit more, right, than what we have in our area for the same?
We're requesting
22.90.
22.90.
Okay. So it's the difference between,
There's a little bit of density difference that we had to start
35-gallon card in
making.
the urban growth boundary.
Urban growth boundary.
okay. Just curious why, what accounting factors or whatever makes the difference when?
Why
Because it's
urban growth
primarily
is-
on Lancaster that our folks are, and I guess Salem would be all over the city limits. So is it access? Is it
There's
gas prices? I don't know what it is.
We're talking about basically the 35-gallon cart, residential cart. And there's a little less density in the urban growth boundary than there is in the city of Salem.
Oh, okay.
So it
So that
takes a
makes
little bit longer between stops. I mean, we've tested this for years, and it's not much, but there's a little.
Okay. All right. Just curious.
And not really comparing, like, within, near Salem and within, when you look at the other rates, like Albany, there, the big factor there would be much cheaper disposal rates.
That's
There's
right.
a lot of moving things that happen. Even the mixture that you have in a certain area, then the amount of commercial, industrial versus residential can affect the rates all
That's
around.
right.
As
That customer mix is very important.
efficiencies go up with, density really does it, but when you think of a commercial industrial, you, in a small given area, you can generate a lot of revenue. So there can be differences. It is a little bit more. And just so people know that we know, Salem also added an extra 2% franchise fee, and I don't quite know how they justify that, but we're not looking at that at this time.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Oh, I got the wheels going, huh? If it's 2, why not 5? That's what he says.
Just glad, never mind, no comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we have no one that has signed up to speak from the public. Is there anybody here that would like to that hasn't signed up? I don't see anybody, so Jeff, if you'd come back forward, and then we'll have a little discussion. We did not set an action portion of this hearing, so what I'd suggest is that we close it, but I want to throw this out, leave perhaps written testimony available till 4 o'clock the night before, which would be December 2nd, and then a decision on Wednesday, is it the 3rd of December?
My understanding is this is on this coming Wednesday's
Yes.
board session.
Yeah, so we'll accept any written, just to make sure that if there's something, and that can be considered, if it comes in.
I imagine if someone came to talk at public comment, we wouldn't tell them no.
We
right?
don't typically have people talk about something we're gonna have a decision on. I guess you can, but you get into issues, because it's almost like reopening up a hearing.
Yeah, but this is a legislative hearing, correct? It's not a land use hearing.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. It is a legislative matter. It isn't a land use hearing. You have a little bit more flexibility. It is currently scheduled for this Wednesday, 2 days, not December 3rd, so that would be November 26th is when it's scheduled for action currently.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking a week ahead. You're right, it is just next Wednesday.
So if you're going to leave the record open, Mr. Chair, for written comments, that would be through 4 p.m.
Tomorrow.
And then if someone did show up, you have the discretion if you wanted to allow them to speak during public comment.
All right, however you want to do it, but that sounds fine. I got mixed up on the dates. I thought it was a week from now.
So we need to keep an error tally in the board office. We
Yeah.
Put it in your Gordine's dartboard and do things, and we could
I
just,
was
like,
one
go
up
over it.
till then. All right, so what would you like to do?
Oh, that one.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we close the public hearing.
And just that, and indicate.
Oh, do you want me
decision.
to put in the motion? All right, and allow written comments through 4 o'clock tomorrow with the understanding that people may come to public comment on Wednesday.
Okay,
Verbally express their,
and we'll deliberate and
opinion.
make a decision then, and sorry to make them all come back, but they have nothing to do, they said. All
I'll
right.
second the motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, so moving second to close the public hearing to allow written testimony till 4 o'clock tomorrow, the 25th, and deliberate and make a decision at our Wednesday board meeting on the 26th. Okay? Anything else this evening? If not, we'll call this. Jeff, did you have anything to add? Did I skip you and meant to say something?
I did not.
Oh, we're gonna vote. That's the old. Is that a mistake too, or he saved me? Okay.
no, it's
that's-
2A and 2Bs.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, to close the hearing, aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, thank you. Anything else this evening? All right, 2 mistakes in what, 5 minutes? What are you going to do? All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.